Right. So we're back and diving into part 2 of this Trump indictment.
Yeah,
And this one's a doozy.
it is.
It's the one that really feels like a political thriller,
Right.
all about election interference and that road to January 6th.
Yeah.
And given just the sheer volume of what's in this thing,
True.
we're breaking it down into multiple parts
Okay.
to really get into it.
Sounds good.
So
Yeah.
it's not just about the accusations themselves, but also like the narrative, the indictment constructs.
Right.
It's really fascinating.
It's like this Shakespearean tragedy almost.
Totally.
This clash between what Trump wanted to believe and then the stark reality that even his own team is telling him.
Okay, so paint the picture for us here.
Sure.
November 2020. News outlets have called the election for Biden, but Trump's claiming this widespread voter fraud,
Right.
especially in those key swing states.
Of course.
But here's where it gets really wild.
Okay.
The indictment reveals that even as Trump is doubling down publicly, behind the scenes,
Uh-huh.
his own camp is waving red flags.
Yeah, it's really striking, actually.
Really?
Take that Nevada lawsuit
Okay.
about the signature verification machines and the allegations of votes by deceased and non-resident voters.
Right.
The indictment shows that the RNC's own chief counsel,
Wow.
we're talking the top lawyer for the Republican Party,
Right.
emailed Trump's team straight up saying these claims are incredibly weak.
Wow. And not even just like a casual heads up. Like,
No,
he
not even
says,
direct.
to be frank, the contest has a little chance of succeeding. Exactly.
You think that would be a pretty clear signal
You would think.
to maybe
Right.
reconsider.
You'd think.
Right.
But instead, what does Trump do?
Yeah.
The indictment shows he goes on to retweet news of this very lawsuit,
Oh, wow.
calling it big news.
Wow.
And remember, this is after even his own party's legal expert is saying it's a long shot.
It's like he's ignoring his own people.
It's a recurring theme in this indictment,
Really?
especially as we move to other states like Pennsylvania.
So this pattern of
Yes.
Trump being told by people he trusts
Right.
that the fraud claims are baseless,
Yeah.
yet he continues to push them publicly.
It's really concerning.
What message does that send to
Oh.
your supporters, to the public?
It's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And the indictment really suggests that this disconnect
Between what Trump was being told
Right.
and what he was publicly claiming
Yeah.
had a significant impact.
So it's not just a legal battle at this point.
No,
It becomes about controlling the narrative,
absolutely.
about shaping public perception.
Exactly.
Yes, go ahead.
And the indictment suggests that anyone who dare to contradict that narrative, even those Trump had previously supported,
Oh, wow.
became a target,
Really?
like the Philadelphia City Commissioner,
Okay.
who publicly stated there was no evidence of widespread fraud in the city.
Right.
The indictment alleges Trump retaliated by attacking him in a tweet,
Not surprising.
which sadly but predictably led to a wave of threats
Of course.
against the commissioner and his family.
It's chilling
It is.
how powerful words are.
Absolutely.
Especially coming from someone in a position of authority.
Right, and within Trump's own team.
Yeah.
This conflict, this clash
Yeah.
between those buying into the fraud narrative
Right.
and those grounded in reality, it starts to create real tension.
Okay, so you've got this backdrop of mounting pressure, internal disagreements,
Yeah.
and Trump seemingly determined to push forward with these election fraud claims,
It's a recipe for disaster.
despite the mounting evidence against them.
Exactly.
It feels like the stage is set for something major to happen.
You're right, and that takes us deeper into December, closer to the Electoral College vote,
Oh, okay.
where according to the indictment, things escalate dramatically.
So we're talking about this pressure cooker
Yeah.
with Trump facing all this pushback, even from his own team, but still fixated on these election fraud claims. And we're getting closer and closer to that Electoral College vote.
Right? It's like what happens
Right.
when the legal challenges sort of fizzle out,
Yeah,
but you're not ready to concede.
exactly.
Well, that's where this alternate elector scheme comes in.
Okay, so this is where it gets
Yeah.
like really out there.
It's a fascinating...
It's like a separate reality, this
Yeah.
idea of rounding up these slates of electors in states that Trump lost
Yes.
to basically create this whole other set of Electoral College votes.
It's like something out of a political thriller.
It really is.
It is. And
Yeah.
the indictment suggests that it wasn't some last-minute Hail Mary.
Right.
It actually evolved over time,
Interesting.
starting with this memo from John Eastman, one of the lawyers advising the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
Initially, Eastman frames it as this kind of backup plan.
Okay.
In case a recount in Wisconsin somehow goes in Trump's favor.
Right.
But the indictment alleges that it quickly morphed into something far more ambitious.
Wow. So they're really
crossing the line into legally dubious territory.
Okay, so how do they even go about this?
Right.
Like, how do you just round up a bunch of people to say that they're electors when they weren't chosen by the voters?
Well, you would think that would raise some eyebrows, right?
You would think.
But what's revealed in the indictment is that Trump and his co-conspirators, they allegedly used deception.
Okay.
Telling these alternate electors that their votes were just a formality.
Oh, so like a safeguard?
Yeah. Just a safeguard in case the legal challenges panned out.
But they knew that wasn't true.
The indictment strongly suggests that they did.
Wow.
In fact, it reveals this incredible internal turmoil.
Oh, really?
Within the Trump campaign.
Interesting.
With some members expressing serious doubts.
Okay.
About the plan's legality.
So even within his own camp.
Yeah.
People are like, this is not okay.
And frankly, it's competence.
Right.
There's this one text message exchange.
What does it say?
Where a campaign staffer refers to the group of lawyers behind this scheme as the Star Wars bar.
Oh, no.
Implying that they're this motley crew
not a good sign.
Of questionable characters.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement of the legal strategy.
Not at all.
Wow.
And there are these other moments of candor captured in the indictment.
Give us an example.
Like there's this email from a lawyer involved in the Arizona alternate elector scheme.
Okay.
He describes the plan as kind of wild creative.
Wild creator.
Acknowledging it might not hold up legally.
Right.
But then he says, I quote, I guess there's no harm in it.
No harm. That's a pretty casual attitude towards potentially undermining a democratic election.
Yeah, it speaks to a larger point
which is
that emerges from this indictment.
Okay.
Even as they're pushing this plan, the Trump team seems to have been aware that they were on shaky ground legally.
Interesting.
There's a text message from one of the co-conspirators that literally says, careful with your texts. No reason to text things about electors to anyone but John Eastman and me.
So they're aware enough to try and cover their tracks, but still proceed with this alternate elector scheme.
It's like they're operating under a different set of rules.
It really is.
And keep in mind, the goal with these alternate slates wasn't just to exist. It was to convince Vice President Pence to actually use them. To overturn the election results. During the January 6th certification.
And this is where things really kick into high gear. Because Pence ultimately says no.
He does.
But the pressure campaign on him
immense.
To get him to go along with it.
It was immense, almost unimaginable.
It's hard to even fathom.
It is. The indictment details these intense conversations and meetings between Trump and Pence, where Trump is desperately trying to persuade, then cajole, and ultimately even bully Pence into going along with it.
And all of this happening sort of behind closed doors.
Behind the scenes.
And meanwhile, publicly, Trump is turning up the heat even more.
Absolutely.
Using Twitter to spread all this misinformation. So these seeds of doubt about the election.
It's almost like this two-pronged attack.
It really is.
The indictment highlights a string of Trump's tweets.
Really?
In those crucial days leading up to January 6th.
Like what?
Some explicitly aimed at Pence. There's one on January 5th that reads, the vice president has the power to reject fraudulently chosen electors.
Which we know is not true.
Which, as we discussed, was patently false.
Because his role it is largely ceremonial.
Exactly.
It's not like he has this magical veto power over the election results.
You got it. And the indictment even suggests that within Trump's inner circle, they knew.
They knew?
Pence didn't have the authority to do what they were pushing for.
It's like they were knowingly.
It reveals that Pence's own legal team had explicitly warned Trump that this plan was not legally sound.
So they're knowingly peddling this false narrative, both to the public and it seems to their own vice president.
That's the disturbing picture that emerges.
It's a scary thought.
And what's really unsettling is that this deliberate misinformation campaign, this relentless pressure, it creates this volatile climate, this tinderbox, as the indictment calls it,
Wow.
leading right up to January 6th.
And we all know what happens next.
That tinderbox explodes.
It does.
It does. But before we get into the events of January 6th itself, there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to explore.
Okay.
The role of Trump's allies in all of this.
We're back, and wow, things are about to get even more intense.
Yeah, if you thought it was already heated up,
right.
Just wait.
Buckle up.
Yeah, because we're in the lead up to January 6th now.
Right.
And the indictment really highlights how Trump's allies turned up the pressure on Pence.
Yeah, they really brought out the big guns.
They saw that closing window of opportunity.
Right.
And they just went for it.
Full court press.
Absolutely.
So we're talking John Eastman.
Yeah, the lawyer who wrote that memo.
The memo.
About how Pence could supposedly overturn the election. And, of course, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell.
Of course.
Who were everywhere.
Everywhere.
Pushing those election fraud theories.
It's like they were all reading from the same playbook.
It's like a coordinated effort.
Right.
And we can't forget about conservative media.
Oh, right.
The indictment actually calls out this podcast.
Really?
Hosted by Steve Bannon.
Okay.
A close ally of Trump.
Right.
And it claims that he used his platform to push this narrative that Pence had the power to reject electors.
It's scary how effective that kind of messaging can be.
It really is.
Especially when it's coming from a source people trust.
Exactly, because they're already inclined to believe what they're hearing.
Right. It's like they're being told what they want to hear.
Exactly.
And it just reinforces those existing beliefs.
And it wasn't just talk either.
Oh, really?
The indictment alleges that Trump's allies were actively trying to get Pence to meet with Eastman. To try to make this plan happen.
Wow.
Even though it was legally dubious.
So shady.
It really was. And there's even this heated exchange.
What happened?
Where Trump, according to witnesses, angrily tells Pence, "You're too honest."
You're too honest.
Yeah, after Pence refuses to go along with this scheme.
Wow.
So you've got Trump pushing this narrative publicly and privately.
Right.
His allies amplifying it however they can.
It's like they're putting him in an impossible position.
They really are. And then on January 6th,
this is it?
That powder keg explodes.
Right. And the indictment talks about how...
Yeah, in the hours leading up to the attack on the Capitol, Trump's still tweeting.
Of course he is.
Pushing that false information.
Right.
And blaming Pence.
For not overturning the election.
Right. Like it's all on him.
Right.
There's one tweet just minutes before Trump speaks.
I remember this one.
That says, "If Vice President Mike Pence comes through for us, we will win the presidency."
Talk about pressure.
I know, right?
It's like he was trying to incite something.
It really seems that way.
And then the speech itself,
yeah,
where the indictment says Trump's language gets even more intense.
More inflammatory for sure.
Telling his supporters to march to the Capitol.
Right, fight like hell.
Fight like hell.
And he even calls out Pence specifically for not having the courage to do what should have been done.
Which is crazy because at this point, Pence has already said publicly that he doesn't think he has the authority to do this.
He's been very clear about that.
So Trump knows what he's doing.
It seems that way.
He's sending his supporters to pressure Pence.
Yeah.
To do something he's already said he won't do.
Which even Trump's own advisor said was illegal.
Right.
It's really disturbing.
And of course, we all know what happened next.
The rioters stormed the Capitol.
And the indictment makes this connection.
You got a direct line.
Between Trump's words.
Yes.
And the violence that erupted that day.
Absolutely. It describes how rioters,
yeah,
many of them wearing Trump gear,
of course,
chanting his name,
right,
stormed the Capitol looking for Pence.
It's terrifying.
It is chanting, "Hang Mike Pence."
Hang Mike Pence.
Traitor Pence.
Just awful.
It really shows you how fragile things are.
Absolutely.
And how dangerous it is when someone in that position of power puts their own interests above the good of the country.
Above democracy itself.
Exactly. And what's maybe most concerning is that even after the attack, after all the violence and chaos, Trump continues to deflect responsibility.
He can't help himself.
Even praises the rioters.
No.
And insists that he won the election.
It's unbelievable.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. So we've done this deep dive into part 2 of this Trump indictment.
Part 2.
And it's heavy stuff.
It is?
This isn't just a boring legal document.
No.
It's a story about ambition and power and reality.
Right, about the clash between those things.
Yeah, and it makes you think.
It really does.
About accountability in our legal system.
And the future of American democracy.
Big questions.
Huge questions. Like, how will history judge this?
Right.
What lessons will we learn?
Exactly. And those are the conversations we want to have.
Absolutely.
With you, the listener.
Yeah. What are your takeaways?
As you reflect on everything we've discussed today.
What are you thinking about?
About the future of American politics.
Yeah.
About the future of our country.
It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. Thanks for joining.